matters, and not just worry about the dollar from the other perspective, but from our perspective and how we can get it. And I admire your advocacy and how much you guys put forward to things. So how do you guys, Lonsview, how do you guys keep motivating each other? And how do you guys find motivation? Because honestly, as just watching you guys, I'm like, how do you guys do it? Because my worry, I tell John all the time, like, my worry consistently when you go out at night and I'm not with you is that you're not coming back. That's my worry consistently. Because as a black man, I know what can happen. And I've seen what can happen. And I know that you're covered in everything from ancestors and orishas. But that worry can never go away. Because even for my dad, who is of lighter complexion, and it doesn't look like a black man, but he is a Hispanic man who has an accent and carries a gun. That's consistently my worry too. How do you guys motivate each other when it gets to that point where you, like you said, you didn't know how to help your people? Where did you find that motivation?
I think for me, I think we go through that all the time, right? Because it's always what we're fighting against is so big.
It's big.
It's so fucking huge, right? But for me, it's like the beauty in blackness, right? So like me going to a neighborhood school and helping, maybe going to speak to some youth, right? Watching these little black kids play basketball and laugh and play together, right? Or listening to music made by black folks. Stevie Wonder is amazing, right? And basking in the beauty that is like what we have created. Like if you look at America, the only authentic North American music is black music.
Oh my God, why is Jamil not here? Because we and I'm shout out to Jamil, but I Jamil and Carl, because we had this discussion in one of our podcasts. We had a roundtable with a bunch of different individuals, and one of the things that we talked about is how they felt that as black men, they don't have a culture because their culture is consistently being stolen. And I tell them, just because it's being stolen, like everyone's culture, like bachata, it didn't just appear. Like it was there were certain aspects of it that were taken from other cultures to create what now Dominicans appreciate as theirs. And I'm like, just because it's taken from, it doesn't take away from the fact that it is still yours. It still has a attachment to who you are. It has a connection to how you grew up and how it evolves and how it's shared within your own community. And that's what makes that culture. So I wish Jamil was here to hear you say that.
And you know what, like,
not to cut you off, but I just have to.
When cause we have a group chat, and I had read an article about the watermelon. The watermelon always been our stereotype. Yep. But a long time ago, the watermelon was positive, for us black folk. And I was reading an article, and they were saying that pretty much, it became a threat when they started seeing the black folks selling the watermelon in the South. So the newspaper, the media, they turned it around. It was like, they had a little cartoon shit, whatever. Because every time I see that, like, I always get like in my feelings. Because I'm like, bro, like this what we, it was like
we create, they destroy, pretty much.
That, because it was like it was doing the slavery.
I say we because I consider myself, because I know within my lineage. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but one of those main things is African. So I do say we, in case people are like, "You're not black." I'm like, yes, I am.
Through like slavery, like after slavery and all that, like black people, they learned how to grow and stuff like that. And one of them was watermelon. So I'm like, when I was reading the article, I'm like, why do the white folk change our, like, try to change our history? Either they try to make it negative or they try to steal it from us and stuff. Like, for example, South Florida. I talk about this all the time. I'm like, South Florida think they New York or something like that. Not in a bad way, because New York got a lot of black history too. Way before it was like a big city. But I'm talking about like as Southern people. Mm-hmm. I'm like they don't understand that, you know, the reason why the 95 was created was because they want to keep the black people from like the overtown and stuff. They want to divide that, you know, from Dade, Broad, and Palm Beach and stuff. And like every time I hear the narrative, like, oh, South Florida people ain't Southern and stuff. But like when a New York person come down, people from the West Coast, they be like, bro, y'all got this is South.
No, but that's true though. If you look at 95. On usually the east or the west side, right next to 95 is always the black neighborhoods, right? So go straight up and down 95 and you'll find the black neighborhoods on the east side or the west side, right?
I never realized that until recently.
And it's the truth. It is documented. There's this really good book called The Color of Law, where they talk about like them running highways through black communities. One, to dismantle the communities, but also they don't put exits there, right? So if they put an exit away from the community, then your businesses on that community won't be attended as much.
Right, because every time my mom say, you know, your great grandparents owned the whole 7th Ave, I'm like, what happened? I'm like, stuff happened, you know.
His granddad consistently says it, like, my wife's parents, they had money, like they counted numbers, which at the time I didn't know what that meant. My northern ass.
Y'all say like the bookies.
They were bookies, and he was like, they did this and they owned this, and it was like in his, because he's you know, he has dementia, so he's losing his mind. Not his mind, but his memories. But for him to consistently, like, whenever he sees me, and that's what he wants to tell me, is amazing to me. That's what he remembers, because to him, he's always saying it like, we had this is what we had, and it just
this is for me. It's during those hard times, just looking at the beauty of blackness, and that through all of this shit, we've still come out the other side. People love our culture, they consume it, right? It's fucking swaggy, it's amazing, and it's lit to be black, right? In a way that other people can't say, right?
And that's why I like, you know, I'm an advocate for business, you know, because especially like down here, it's like, you know, a lot of Dominicans, a lot of the Cubans and stuff, a lot of the South Americans that think they don't have African American in them, but they do. It's like, I feel like not everybody, but most black folks down here is like afraid to grow their businesses down. I'm like, y'all do know that we pretty much built this city, you know. Pretty much, we built the whole thing, you know. Because how the story goes, the slaves from like Georgia and the Carolinas and stuff came down. And then the Bahamians came and got them. They went over there. They came back, built up Miami. And soon the Puerto Ricans came. The Dominicans came. The people think
the slaves from the came. Because that's another thing that, because me and John consistently talk about, that's the one thing that
the free slaves that came over.
Yeah, because we were watching She's Gotta Have It, and that was something that even I, as a Caribbean Afro-Latina, like, I didn't know that there were actual slaves in the Caribbean islands that were free, and that when things got bad, they were then they were not free blacks anymore, because the way that they were explaining it was literal English to Spanish translation. It was that you had black people who were free, you had free black people, and then you had the slaves, and then it just all became one big thing. So that's the one thing that me and John feel like, as an educator, I consistently try to do within my class, especially now in a class of students who are like Russian and from South America and don't really know that history. Like, this is what happened in the Caribbean and in your South American countries, and how it ends up here. And that's one thing that bothers me as an educator. Like, I don't want to hide that. I want that to be known, that those individuals came up and built what we now have.
Right. I think for me, I mean, to find hope, I think number one, it's some days just realizing that like it's just too much. Right. Like I remember when Alton Sterling and Philando Castile were killed. Yeah. Like we stayed in bed. We were like, it's not today. Like it's not happening today. I think so. I think part of it is also just being like, I can't today. Like I just physically cannot. I just need to sit here. I just need to do whatever I need to do. You know. To just feel, you know. Mm-hmm. I think a part of it has also been setting a boundary around like exposing myself to some of it. Mm-hmm. So like I do not watch any more of the police violence videos. Like I just can't do it. And then I think another part of it is also just knowing that we have to. Like once you get to a certain level of woke, like you can't go back. Mm-hmm. You can't just not do anything because then you're even more complicit in everything that's happening. And I mean, whether or not we decide to have kids, like there are kids that will come after us. Right. And if we stop working right now, like the world will not change. Mm-hmm. But somehow we have to make conditions even a little bit better for them. Like people work to make conditions better for us. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I always say like, this is my duty. Like my ancestors went through far worse to fight for their liberation and see hope on the other side. So much so that they would have kids while enslaved. Like so much so that they would, you know, continue to bring around generations of people. So who am I to like not pay back that debt to somebody else that's going to come after me or someone that's here right now alongside me? Right. And then I think again, like finding those places to find joy, whether it's dancing. I think sometimes that also looks like partaking in stuff that is oppressive, like twerking to patriarchal music. Like sometimes it is some of those things to be able to find joy in our food, like in our families, to be able to find joy in traveling and going to other places. Like I think some of it, like doing whatever you have to do to like also guard your mind, and then also know that on the other side of that is work to be done. Like we have to get back to the work.
You bring up a really good point because there are some people who are really woke. And it's
I
like
was about to ask y'all what.
Yeah, like where? What level?
No, because like one day, like no, because like one day, no, because I know y'all woke, but it was one day like
where we at on the scale?
We've known people who are woke where they're like, I'm not listening to this because it oppresses my people. Yeah, or, like I can't listen to.
The dude he was talking about, I'm sorry, Eminem was one of my favorite rappers of all time. I'll put it out there, but he was saying that like people, you know, they overhyped Eminem because he was white and he was in hip hop and stuff. I got my own opinion about that. You know, so I ain't trying to go too deep, but I basically saying like you gotta think about it. Eminem, he wasn't a rapper that used hip hop. Eminem actually came from the trenches, you know what I'm saying? Like he grew up with black people, so a lot of people gonna think of that, alright, whatever, like that's just whatever and stuff. But for me, like when you listen to his music and stuff and his content, it may be it may not be for everybody, but for me, growing up and stuff like that,
that's what spoke to you.
Yes, like I can.
I think a better way to ask the question is, where do you draw your line of this is not what I stand for, and it crosses what I believe and what I feel.
That line is tough.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, especially when you're talking about like art, right? Right. Because I think. So I talk about comedy and art. Like comedy, I love comedy. I love stand-up comedy, but people are fucking terrible sometimes.
Yeah.
On their shit. But also, I think that if something's funny, then you just can't help but laugh. Yeah. Right? It can be like really witty, but it can also be just like something really dangerous that somebody's saying. Mm. But if it's funny and they deliver it right, you're gonna chuckle, right? So there's that line, and then there's also I think that there's that same line with music, right? I think there's something if you make a beat hit that right note and that right melody, your ass gonna move, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like, how do you separate sometimes just like the inherent feeling you get from these things, the joy that you get from them, from like the person that created them? it's really hard to do. And I think, depending on, and this is a very blurry line, depending on what the person has done,